Welcome to Career Tools. This week, the effective way to attend training, part 1. The questions this cast answers are: what's a good attitude for training? What things should I take to training? And what should I do whilst I'm at training?
If you've been thinking of registering for an upcoming virtual conference, now is the time to act. Starting January 1st, 2021, our virtual conference prices will be increasing by $100 per registration. Any and all conference registration purchases made before that date will not be subject to the price increase. Do you want to attend an event in June next year? Buy it today to pay the 2020 price. Get in on the deal by visiting manager-tools.com/training.
Sarah, we've done a podcast or two about training before, but we kind of mixed together the idea of training, i.e. learning something from someone who stands at the front of the room and gives you instruction, and industry conferences, which I guess someone still stands at the front of the room and teaches you something, but they're kind of a different animal. And we kind of mixed those things together. And so what we want to do is do another cast that's just specifically about training, the way that most people think about it. So you are instructed or you choose to go somewhere, or someone comes to you for a specific work purpose to train you about a topic, and you are effectively learning from that person something that you are then going to do or action, rather than an industry conference where you might learn about, the latest developments in something, but it's not directly something you're going to do later. This is about stuff you're going to do later. And this could be a video, it could be as I said, a trainer comes to you. It could be an internal trainer. It could be somewhere you go. It could be someone from your company, but not where you work, or it could be someone from where you work. It could be your manager who's training you, or it could be from somewhere else. It could be an outside trainer, or it could be an industry trainer. It could be all sorts of people. And no matter what, there's some good things to do so that you get the most out of training for yourself, and also set the right tone for other people. The job of a trainer, as Sarah, I am sure, is going to tell you, is actually a very difficult one. Yeah. It's hard to teach 30 people in a room who all have different levels of understanding, who
exactly
all have a different number of years since they were last in a classroom, who all have a different desire to be in the room, have different ways they're going to implement things. To teach those 30 people something in 8 hours, it is really difficult. And a lot of the time we see people who don't want to be there, which we sometimes call hostages. Uh-huh. And not just for Manager Tools. I've seen this
all the training
for my entire career. People that don't want to be in training, and they make that person's life, that person's day, really difficult.
And detract from the experience of everyone else.
Right. And I just think, now I look back on it, I think, if somebody sat in my office, I work from home, so they would have to come to my house and sit in my office and just sit there and make my work life, my work day difficult just because of their own feelings, I would be really angry. And now I think back on it, having seen that in training, I feel really bad for the people whose lives, whose days were made hard by those people.
It's true.
So if you're listening to Career Tools, you're probably not one of those people.
Probably not.
But I think, part of being effective in training, being a good attendee, is actually making the trainer's life easier and at least not worse. And so that's some of what we're going to cover, but we're also going to cover getting the most out of training yourself and how to be a positive influence in that training.
Absolutely. All right. So then our outline for the day, we're going to talk about staying positive and saying positive things about going to the training itself, preparing properly, listening attentively, participating, and saying thank you. We're going to start our conversation then talking about you're saying positive things about going to training in advance of actually going to the training. Before you even go, you can support your organization, your manager, and show them that you're excited about the opportunity by saying positive things to your coworkers, to others around. So for example, something like saying to a group of people, you know what? I think it's really great that the company is investing in us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Other things. So you could say, you know what, guys, I'm going to go in with an open mind on this one. I always learn something from every training. Or I'm interested in hearing a new perspective on something I think that I already do well, how I might be able to enhance my skills. Or I like this one. Mandatory trainings, just that. It's mandatory. So, I mean, if I'm going to go, I might as well go in with a good attitude. Or, you know what? I'm really interested in seeing what's maybe changed since last year or what's slightly different since last time I took this training.
Yeah, there's lots of good things about training, and you sometimes hear, so I've said this before on class, I'm a Toastmaster, and Toastmaster officers are required to go to training twice a year, and effectively you learn how to do your officer job, and it doesn't change that much year to year. So twice a year you effectively go to 4 hours of training that you feel like 2 hours are kind of different every time, but 2 hours are about the job that you do. And everyone is like, yeah, well, I knew this. Like,
Yeah.
I knew this last September when I had training, or August, and I don't need to learn it again in January. And I have to say, I used to be one of those people, and I have really changed recently because I've discovered how differently people perceive and teach what your job is. It's really interesting that what I think is important as a vice president of education, for instance, is versus what someone else who teaches the class 6 months after I do thinks is important. And often I do learn something new, or I get a different perspective on something of what's important and how that can help the people that I work with. And so if you go with that attitude, then you are almost certain to find something that you learn. It's one of those things that, you know, if you're looking for something new, you'll find something new. If you're looking to be bored all day, you'll be bored all day. That's just life, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time people are saying negative things about training, and you can be heard to be saying positive things. If you think about it this way, there's 3 ways you can end up at training. You wanted to go. In which case, why are you being negative,
exactly.
right? If you've petitioned to go to this training, then why are you being negative? That doesn't make any sense.
Makes no sense.
Or you didn't want to go, but your manager thinks that you ought to go or wants you to go. In which case, let's assume some positive intent. Let's assume that your manager has a good reason for thinking that you either need or would benefit from this training, even if it's, you know, maybe it's, you know, remedial training on taking notes in meetings, right? Most of us think, I take good notes. But, you know, maybe you'll learn something, or maybe you just want to show your boss that you're willing to learn something.
Yes.
You're willing to go with a good attitude. And I know attitude is a really bad word. We don't use attitude, but people know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or the third way you end up at training is it's mandatory. You have to go whether you want to or not. You know, sexual harassment training, ethics training. I can't think of any, you know, training on industry, legislation, those kind of things. You have to go whether you like it or not. So you might as well go with the mood. And carping about it or being negative about it, it's not going to make a difference. It's just going to actually make you more miserable because you're saying, I'm going to waste 8 hours. Yeah. And you keep telling yourself that, and then it becomes true. And there are people all over the world who are desperate to go to training, desperate, who have never had training in their entire career.
And they want nothing more. Exactly.
Yeah, they would go to training about anything, about, you know, how to clean their desk because they want so desperately to go to training. So be grateful that you are getting an opportunity and make the most of it. Your company has paid for you to be there.
Financially invested.
Yeah, or personal, and if you sit at the back and you're leaning backwards and you've got your hands crossed and you're just saying, I don't like this, or disagreeing with everything the trainer says, it's just unprofessional. It's not showing gratitude for what you've been given. It's not, you know, those people who don't get training will never know that that's what you did, but they would be upset if they knew that's what they did, right? So be grateful for the opportunity that you're getting, even if you think you don't need it. And even if you don't need it,
Mhm.
The coolest thing is you get to hang out with some different people all day.
Exactly.
Like, almost certainly this is not your team. And even if it is, you get to hang out and not work all day. You get to, talk about some different things. So enjoy that, even if you can't enjoy the training.
Absolutely. And guys, in addition to your thoughts on attending training when you might not want to, first, it's important to remember that it's the message, not the medium. That is, for example, I understand that you might not want to spend a whole 4 hours straight on a live video call, and you might not like the trainer, or you might be doing an in-person training and you don't want to travel all the way to the other office and longer commute and finding a parking spot. It's the worst. I know that there are a lot of reasons that going to training and being in training is inconvenient. I 100% understand that. But none of those reasons affects the message itself. It doesn't affect the content. It doesn't affect all the thing that you're supposed to be learning. And on all of the trainings, there's something positive. You can have a constructive, helpful learning experience if you put aside logistics and how difficult it is in your daily life to make this happen and just concentrate on the message itself, right? What you're to be learning, or the ideas or value you could glean from the time spent, because you're going to be there. You might as well make a choice to get the most out of it.
This training might not be helpful to you right now.
Immediately. Absolutely not.
It might be something you're just thinking, I'm never going to use this.
Right.
But it might be helpful in the future. It might be that you're sent to some training about tax law and you just think, I'm never going to, who cares about tax law, right? Who cares? And then, you find out that you're an IT project manager and your next job is project managing with the tax department.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, tax law becomes really important to you. And maybe somebody knows that and you don't know it yet, right? Because that's the plan they have for you, but they don't tell you that before you send.
Yeah, they don't tell you, right? Lack of communication is a thing we all talk about all the time.
Exactly. Well, maybe you meet someone really interesting there who, helps you later.
A great connection. Exactly.
It might not be what you would choose to spend 8 hours on now. And I have to say, almost always, people say, I don't have time to go to this training. I've already got way too much work to do. Why am I going to waste 8 hours when I could be spending that getting through my to-do list? And, most of us feel that way, I think. And the answer is because you don't know what you're going to learn. And maybe that's even more valuable than 8 hours banging through your to-do list.
Exactly.
And you can't know that unless you go. You have to allow for serendipity to come into life. I was listening to something today. It was a girl who has just finished a degree. So she's one of those people who wasn't able to graduate, with the ceremony because of COVID, and the economics situation is very uncertain. She's in Europe, but very uncertain. She doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life, and even if she did, jobs are hard to get. And she was saying, she was very stressed out by it. And she was talking to someone else who said, how did you meet your boyfriend? And she said, well, I happened to go to a party and he happened to be there and we happened to,
exactly.
speak. And now we've had a, 4 or 5 year relationship. And the person she was speaking to said, yes. And that's how you have to think about getting a job or what comes next in your life. You have to be out in the world having serendipitous moments, having coincidental moments, and training's kind of like that too. If you're sat at your desk banging through your to-do list, serendipity doesn't have a lot of chance.
Yeah.
But maybe at training, it does.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. In fact, that's how I got this job with Manager Tools.
And me, right?
Right? That's the thing. I mean, I was a student in the class. So you don't actually know what training is going to mean for your life. Your attitude going into it will greatly affect how much value you can extract from that experience.
Is remote work straining relationships in your organization? Do you see less engagement and coordinated effort from the team now that people have been working remotely for months? If so, you may consider our virtual effective communicator training. Knowing how to observe and analyze other people's behaviors and communication allows you to tweak your communication style. This can be extremely beneficial, even when you and your group are remote. It's even more important in these challenging times to communicate effectively. For an $11,000 flat fee, we will train up to 30 of your professionals with our virtual effective communicator training. It's a 4.5-hour session with video supporting practice to complement the session of lecture and practice. Contact Maggie if you'd like to hear more, or check out the details on our website.
Another part, or in addition to going in with a more positive attitude and saying verbally positive things so that others hear that, is preparing properly. Okay, so guys, if you're going to get anything out of the training, you need to be prepared for the training itself. So first find out or ask yourself or your manager or whomever, why are you attending this training? Because knowing why you're attending the training itself is going to help you decide what you need to do, what you need to concentrate on while you're there. So let's give it an example. So if, for example, it's a technical training about an actual piece of machinery that you're going to be using, you need to make sure that in the training you've taken notes on how it works, what resources there are, so you can find out what to do if you get stuck, and how exactly it's going to work, that tool, within your department. If it's a training instead on latest developments in your industry, you're going to, again, want to have taken notes on major themes and ideas so that you can, and further additional resources, so you can deepen your understanding and thoughts on how these developments, which are industry-wide, might play out internally in your own organization. And then, if it's management training, for example, again, you'll notice the theme here. You're going to want to have taken notes on what's recommended, when, how to use these resources, additional resources for implementation, and thoughts on how you might implement the ideas themselves.
Yes. So taking notes, i.e. having a pen and some paper to write on.
And a paper. Mm-hmm.
Is a subtle. We didn't actually, I don't think we say it. Maybe we say it later on. But yeah, the number of people who turn up to Manager Tools training with no pen and no paper astounds me.
I know.
It's like, what did you think was going to happen? Especially now in the COVID life, a lot of hotels aren't giving out pens and paper because it means someone else touching it before you've touched it and so on. So please go to training with a pen and paper. It's really basic. Yeah. And you have to have read the briefing emails or whatever you got beforehand and ask any questions that you have ahead of time.
Absolutely.
If your organization has asked you to attend training, but you don't know why, then please ask your manager or ask whoever sent you and say, I'm really excited. I'm glad I'm getting to go to training. And I want to make sure that I get the most out of it. So can you tell me, what particular things were you thinking I would benefit from?
Exactly.
So that you know during that day what you should be focusing on.
Absolutely. Now, in addition to that, guys, you want to do your homework. That is, for most trainings, this also speaks to Wendy's previous point, you're going to want to read those emails. Because for most training, some information goes out ahead of time, even if that information is just as simple as location and the time it starts. But guys, believe us, because we create them all the time. Trainers spend hours and hours on emails in order to make sure that all the information that we think you need, that you've got it in advance, make sure that your common questions are asked so that you are as prepared and feel as prepared as possible to get the most out of the hours with the trainer. It's hard for a trainer, no matter how long the session itself is, to transmit or deliver 100% of the knowledge and information in that short period of time.
I was talking to Kate the other day about a session she did, and she said, I had 2 hours. I had another 2 hours of material.
Oh, easily.
Trainers are picking and choosing because they don't have enough time to tell you everything. Our Effective Manager Conference used to be 2 days, and now I can't do
one
the math,
day.
But it's one
hours,
day, and it's not even a full day.
Yeah.
And so there's no way that without preparation, without knowing what you're supposed to be doing and what you're expecting, that you are going to get the most out of everything that they have to tell you.
Oh, there's no way.
You can also trust us because as the transfer to virtual, I've been involved in this stuff a lot recently in a way that I haven't for a long time. At least 50% of the attendees have not read the emails.
Least.
Don't do what's asked. And another 10% do it the night before or the morning of the training. And they're like, we get emails an hour before the training starts that says, oh, I'm trying to do my DISC profile and I can't do it. And I'm like, we sent you the invite 4 weeks ago. Why are you doing it the morning of? This it's just bad. And all those emails that go out that I know Kate and Sarah and other trainers outside of here work so hard on, and people just don't read them, and it drives me nuts.
I know.
And the other thing that it reminds me of is that truism, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, if you don't read the emails or you read them at the last minute and you come to training unprepared, kind of tells me that you do that for everything. And that kind of says to me that you're not terribly professional. And you're not getting the most out of this training. You're not getting the most out of anything.
No,
which seems like a sad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now, additionally, guys, we've got in our guidance, plan to arrive early. Okay, so as a trainer, I know what this is like. Now, if it's an in-person event, you should know that the people who arrive early get the hottest coffee. They get to chat with the trainer, who is probably in that room at least 30, if not 45 minutes early. And therefore have the best initial experience with the trainer, the presenter, and fellow attendees before the training starts, right? Get to meet people. As Wendy mentioned at the very beginning, this isn't an industry conference necessarily. However, there is multiple opportunities in these sessions to network. One, and probably the most impactful of those, is first thing in the morning. Now, in addition, arriving early to those in-person events means you get to choose your seat, the best seat in the house. You don't miss anything, right? Not even the first few seconds, because you don't get trapped in an unknown location. You're stuck in a parking lot. You don't know how to find a parking space. You're outside. You're looking around. First 10 minutes of the event then is spent trying to come down from that stressful experience and trying to catch your breath because you had to run in at the last minute across the parking lot and searching for a conference room, which is always buried in the bowels of the hotel.
Right. Hotel conference rooms are always really hard to find, all look the same.
Oh, yes.
And have really weird names.
Absolutely. Terrible signage.
Hard to remember.
Just standard.
And virtually is just as bad because you're trying to find the Zoom link and then Zoom decides it's got an update or whatever. Teams has decided it's got an update. Doing this stuff at the last minute is almost guaranteed stress.
Exactly. Absolutely. So yes, this be early guidance, as Wendy just said, does apply to online training as well. It gives you the chance to identify those, oh, dang it, I need a reboot or whatever the problem may be. And the same opportunities then present themselves virtually. If you're the first or among the first there, it gives you the opportunity to chat with the trainer, with other attendees, etc.
Okay, next we talked about choice of seat. So sit at the front and or have your video on. We're going to make those two things, they're equivalent in the two different rounds. And a good reason for arriving early is so that you can sit at the front. And this isn't school. Sitting at the back isn't cool.
Where the cool kids go.
You are more than 18. Get over it. You're there because you want to be.
Right.
We've already described why you would want to be there. So you're there because you want to be. And so you might as well sit at the front. And sitting at the front forces you to concentrate. For people like me, whose mind tends to wander, I concentrate when I'm at the front because I know everybody
people can see you.
And if they can see me, I can't be doodling and letting my mind wander. And it's also a positive signal for the presenter.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being the person at the front of the room? Yeah, of course you can, because you don't need to imagine, right? You're at the front of the room. You're there with a bunch of people you don't know, and none of them sit at the front. They all sit at the back.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you? Your first thought would be, "Oh God, they don't want to be here. This is going to be a really hard day.
They already hate me. This is going to be the worst."
Sit at the front, get your mate to sit at the front with you, and send that positive signal to the presenter that at least one person is on their side.
Absolutely.
Nice.
It makes for a better experience for everyone in the room, I assure you, when the presenter feels like there are people who are there and willing to learn and excited to learn. Sitting in the front row means a lot to a presenter.
How often do you think that you go to train, or that you deliver training in person and there isn't someone in the front row?
Oh, you know what? That's rare, I'm going to say. And the
Okay,
reason
good.
for that is that we specifically set up our conference rooms so that there is not a single open seat in the room.
So there
Because
isn't
of
a
that.
chance to sit somewhere
Exactly.
somewhere else because there aren't any spare seats.
Right. If we weren't so
Sneaky.
yeah, if we weren't so overly, I want to say fussy about that, I would say 95% of the time, the front row would be empty. But yes, if I arrive the morning before the training and I realize there's 3 extra seats, I will have them removed. Because otherwise, I will be standing at the front by myself.
Right. And there's just like, there's a distance between, the physical distance is also a mental distance. The further away you are, like the less you can interact with that person through your body language, facial expression, like if you're further away, you can't see the
Exactly.
detail. And that makes it harder, I imagine, for you, in that the people at the back, when you can't see their facial expressions as well, you can't tell if you're not explaining something properly or if they're not getting it. And so they're going to miss things that you could have said in different words had you been able to see their faces.
It's different when you can see somebody's face and wait a minute, I'm going to say that again. Or, it looks like you have a question, Wendy. What's going on? That's completely different. Whereas when people sit so far away, you can't really tell. And then rightfully so, because we do evaluations after each session. I am not surprised that the people in the back are the people who are having a worse experience. Why would I be surprised by that? Because I, as a presenter, am without the only way I can gauge the audience. I can tell if you're in the front row, if you're not really feeling it. But if you're in the back, I can't really tell. So yes, people in the back row do tend to have a poorer experience because I'm without the data I need to help them have a better one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And guys, that applies then. Again, as Wendy mentioned earlier, the equivalent of front row sitting in a virtual environment is have your video on and stay on video. If possible, throughout the entire call. And I understand that some people don't like being on video because we don't like the way we look. And I understand and know vividly that it is human nature when your image is one of the pictures being presented on the screen, you spend the entire time looking at yourself. I understand that.
Which is why I prefer Zoom over Teams, because on Zoom you can turn off your own view. And I don't need to look at myself, and then I don't get distracted. I look at other people.
Right. Yes. Exactly. If you turn yourself off, you don't know what you look like. If you have it on, you're going to look at yourself the whole time. So if you can hide that, all the better. I know that the vast majority of us don't want to be on video because also that way we can kind of get away with multitasking a little bit. Right? We're a little bit like half listening while we like doing email or like sending a quick like IM to somebody and getting some of our work done at the same time. But guys, you should know it's a really, really difficult task to have your presenter presenting to an entirely blank monitor with no feedback on what you're thinking whatsoever. Because the virtual environment means people are also on mute. So not only can we not hear any feedback, it's dead silent except for our voices. We also have no faces. To be clear, it would be the exact same experience if no one were in the room, because you could be dialed in and in your kitchen making a sandwich and not even there. So in order for your organization also to get the most from this training and to be fair to your organization that actually paid for the training, be there. Turn on your video, leave your video on. Be involved. Don't send IM or email throughout. Get the most that you can for the investment and the opportunity being given to you by your organization. And yeah, I know it's kind of a bit of a pain. It means you're probably going to have to get dressed, probably brush your hair. Don't worry about your teeth. It's fine. Right? Clean up your office a little bit, like move some of the larger messes off your desktop. And none of that is a bad thing. I mean, yeah, like, I mean, if you do those things because of training, chances are you're probably going to have a better day anyway.
I was doing some training for Toastmasters a few weeks ago, and I had like 30 people in the room, but there was only 2 or 3 on video, and I had been talking nonstop for like 10 minutes, and I suddenly thought, I have no idea if anybody is hearing this. I have no idea if my sound is getting through, and I've just been talking, because there's no feedback.
Yeah.
About, there's nothing. There's,
Yeah.
I mean, I just told myself, well, if they couldn't hear me, they'd tell me. But I didn't know that for sure, because you can't tell.
You don't know that.
When there's just blank screens and no sound. You could just be talking and nothing happening. It was so weird.
Yeah, it's super weird. I agree.
And if you're thinking, oh, well, that doesn't sound hard to me, just try it once.
Try it once.
Just be the presenter and present to a blank screen, or, just 1 or 2 faces and no sound, and just discover how hard it is. And I guarantee you will change your mind, just because it's such a miserable experience.
Oh, it's hard.
That's all for this week. We'll be back next week with the second part of this cast.